Uh, Good evening, students. Today, I'm happy to see you on the board. Of course, my team member will be actually looking around how many are there, and I request all of the team leaders to arrange so that whatever whoever is joining in for today's session, let them join in, and they will be actually taking the note of the attendance too. What we are going to discuss today is mostly upon we will be talking about actions on the public policies, how we are framing that public policies, what are the good or bad things about the public policies, what can be the advantages on that. Uh, there is a certain framework which we will be discussing on the public policy. Of course, we have discussed on those things, but we will be carrying on discussing on those. And today we will be taking one of the case study where you will be actually giving the deliberation on that, and then we will construct the exact framework of the public policy using that particular case study. We will be talking about that odd and even scheme which government of Delhi actually has initiated 3 to 4 days, 4 years back. So we'll be discussing about that and construct a policy or evaluate that particular policy, how good or bad it is, based on those framework. So I request my team leaders, of course, to share the slide which I have shared it to them, if they are able to, or let me know otherwise.
Yes, sir, I'll share the PPT.
Since usually last 2 days or 3 days we are talking about whenever we are talking about public policy, usually it's totally on the background of at the backdrop of the government. We are talking about more about the government. Just move on to the first page. This is the initial one. Move on to the first page. Whenever we are talking about public policy, it's totally we are talking that how the government is taking up or how the government officials, bureaucracy, uh, police administration, uh, MPs, MLAs, how they are taking up this public policy, or how they are constructing, or what all those things which they are actually focusing for. So based on those things, actually we are discussing about the public policy. So very first, I will be talking about what exactly the actions being taken up because of this public policy by the government or by the government officers. Usually, when we see any of the policy, it's been massively it's been actually addressing or that particular policy is trying to achieve the law and order in the state, law and order in the city, law and order in the town area, and of course how the judiciary is working, the justice is being given to people or not, and the basic framework for the rule of law. That is rule of law, you can say, or land of law. That is the initial or the primary thing. This one is the primary motive for making any of the public policy. Moving on to the next, which we were discussing regarding why this has been done. You all know this public policy means policy which is for the public and policy which is for the benefit of the public. And how the benefit is being given by creating a basic infrastructure in regard to roads, basic infrastructure in regard to lights in street, basic infrastructure in regard to schools, libraries, railway stations, airports, and of course malls, avenues. That's what actually the basic infrastructure for any of the village, town area, or city require. So the second parameter, that is section action plan for framing out a public policy, is creating the basic infrastructure. Then comes whenever we're talking about the people in general, the primary motive to get the benefit or to propose a benefit to the people is their basic health, the healthcare infrastructure, and the quality education which we are trying for, or government of India, or like schools and colleges and universities we are trying for. And lastly, of course, which we were discussing during our industrial visit also, that whenever we are talking about the public policy, uh, administration has to think for, minister has to think for, the people, those who are actually sitting at the top in the ministries or in the government, they need to think for that how we can create a job. More and more jobs means more and more people get benefited by that. Sustainability will be there. If we are creating a job, if we are into the creation of job, it requires a skill development also, promotion of various manufacturing units also, industries also, service industries also, promotion of the those whatever being manufactured by the infrastructures or organizations that needs to be promoted. That needs to import also. We need to export it also. Promotion and innovation for those things. And whenever we are talking about this, uh, we require a complete framework. We require a complete policy so that this can be delivered. Actually, this can be delivered. So whenever we are talking about state, how move on to the next one, please. This is what exactly the action plan of the government. Whenever the first slide is saying that government is trying or government is doing or framing any of the policy to actually get on or to achieve these particular actions on the ground. Now, whenever we are drawing or whenever we are saying about the public policy, there are three major problem areas in public policy. It's not that it is free of problem area. Any of the case, we are having an impediments, we are having an uh, uh, good things also and bad things also. So each coin has a both head and
Excuse me, sir.
hello.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Is
So
that
I want
audible?
to ask, sir, this, sir, you're talking on the state behalf or central? Or
We
both
are
of
talking
them?
about in general that whenever we are talking, if a public policy is being framed either at the center or in the state,
Okay, sir.
the basic motive or basic idea of doing of framing a public policy is the same. Either you do it in the state or you do it in the center. The basic idea will be the same. And for that reason, we are actually the first page is addressing that whenever we are going for a framing out the any of the public policy, we need to address these things. I think you are now clear for that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So next move, we are moving on that. Okay, we are having a target. That is, we are having a topic that these people need to get benefit out of that particular policies. Now there are certain impediments. There are certain actually a problem area or the gray area whenever we are talking about the public policy. So what can be those gray areas? We all know how bad during last 20 years or so, we are listening about the red tapeism or the bribing or the harassment across the institutions, across the individuals, across various down the line of the line. There are certain cases, and there is a power play of that. And because of this, the policy is getting the effect of those things. Whenever the red tapeism is there, whenever the bribing is there, or power play is there, the proper benefit which is to be delivered at the grassroots level for the people, towards the beneficiaries, towards the village people, towards the school students, or towards the any of those beneficiaries, those who are getting the benefit out of that particular program of the scheme, they might not get those things. Just I'm putting one of the example here. You might have heard of how the ration card been dispatched or delivered earlier, pre technical interventions. There was such a great red tapeism into that. If you see, I think you take on the cases of electrical connections or driving license, pre-technical interventions, a huge number of red tapeism was there. Driving was going around. Harassment was there for the people. People were actually paying more for the less amenities or those services which are being free actually. Or there are certain nominal fees which is to be actually paid by them, but they were keep on paying huge for that and they were not getting the services. And even the public servant sitting at lower level of government systems, they sound very much powerful because they think for that they are not at all accountable for this. And once they are not at all accountable for it, they can do whatever their thoughts are, or whatever their motive behind those things. But as soon as technical interventions comes in, I must say, because of the technical interventions, because of the IT interventions, driving license, we can actually very well log in online and get on the appointment and even get the driving license too. If we need to take the ration card, that is also an online intervention is there. So many things have been actually changed since last 10 years or so. There are so much changes. There are so many changes in this. Now, secondly comes, this is how actually the power play of the bureaucracy or power play of the system actually which is working. Now, on the top of public policy, the decision makers of the frame workers are the political people, and they have a different actually statement or different agenda whenever they are sitting at the top. Because see, the ministers, the government officials, they are working differently. The ministers are thinking for their vote bank. They have a different actually agenda towards this. They have a different subject to think for. And the bureaucracy or the officials, they have a different, of course, agenda to work on. They have a legitimate work to do. They have a framework to actually deliver it. But bureaucracy, the ministers or the people, those who are from the parties, they are not thinking likewise. So there is a disconnect between the electors and the public actually. The people those whom we are choosing on the faith of their words or their promises which they are doing. But once they reach on to those levels, there are certain conditions or certain occasions. The disconnect is there between those people, and disconnect is between those electors and the MPs or MLAs down the line, or even the MSCs. Even the Pradhan of the GAUM, there are the certain cases that Pradhan, the head of that particular village or the Gram Panchayat, people feel disconnected to him also because he is not actually delivering whatever is being uh, sent from top level to those Gram Panchayats of the Gram village areas. So there is a discomfort, disconnect to those, and that is a biggest actually impediment whenever we are delivering any of the public policy, or whenever that scheme is to be delivered, the exact or proper benefit is to be actually rendered to those people. There are certain gap areas of gray areas. Then comes, of course, the over centralization and without responsibility. See, we have so many organizations, we have so many schemes, we have so many policies, and so many institutions to deliver it across the land. Either you take the case of state or you take the case of center also. We have so many infrastructure or ecosystem working towards that. But to achieve the set target, we still are actually lacking around to frame the responsibility or accountability of those things. We need to address this that okay, this particular department, this particular official, these many number of officials are exactly or appropriately responsible and accountable to do this particular act, to achieve this particular scheme, so that they can actually that the scheme should reach down the line at the grassroots area for the people. So this is one, I must say, gray area for delivering public policies whenever we are talking about. Please move on to the next slide. So we came to know what is the gray area or what are those difficulties for public policies, but how we can actually make it so that uh, all those amenities, all those facilities, all those schemes should reach uh, to the people. How we can do it? There are certain ways, or there are certain uh, procedures, or can be certain rules which can define this, or at least, if not the rule, we can actually make functionaries, government functionaries to do actually adapt those things. What are those things? See, in government infrastructure, uh, whoever the official, either the bureaucrat or the IPS people or down the line, the government officials, those who are actually doing anything unethical or we caught on those unethical activities or behavior, just discourage those bad or unethical behavior by way of punishment or by way of setting some examples so that uh, those exercises, those incorrect procedures or malpractices can be actually stopped there on. Uh, One more idea, of course, when we were discussing with IS Hilal sir, he keeps on saying, Pradeepji, what we are doing is we are asking 10 villagers to come on, sit with us, visit all those apartments, visit all those actually ministries, departments, and so on, mingle up with the officials, ask so many questions, as many as they can, so that they can get on the responses, so that they can get on those, okay, how this can be delivered, or kaise hoga wo, how this can be done actually. If I require a PDS, if I need to approach to a PDS officer, or if I need to approach to the food safety officer, or if I need to the approach to the innovation officer of that block, or if I need to approach to any of the DM, how we can actually reach on. So there should be some mechanism in weekly basis. These villages people should actually sit around with government officials. DMs should also actually take one day in a week and speak to the people around in blocks, in villages. He can actually plan, and the officers can plan on those things. By this, we can actually set out the example that okay, वो डीएम साहब के वहां जाते हैं, let us see वो कैसे बताते हैं. वो officials के पास जाके let us go to those particular officials and listen on what all those procedures, कौन से department जाना है, which officers are the best person to actually meet on, which particular government department is best to please speak about this, which is the institution which is actually taking care of our problem. Likewise, if we create an ecosystem where people to officials connect is there, people to department and ministries connect is there, then I must say those improvements or the gray areas can be addressed on. Of course, it is very much difficult to do on or to cater on, but down the line we need to think for one day or so that officers should visit to those areas, bureaucracy should visit to those areas also, to those people also, that what are those improvements and what are those challenges they are facing on. There are set legal procedures already in place in the judiciary system so that we can actually ask uh, uh, judiciary to actually come in, act upon, punish those people, set the law, uh, and set the example so that things can be actually in a good way or placed in a better way. I'm just giving some good examples what we have done or what our country in states or even the government of India has set on or tried to set on some good examples to do this. You might be knowing about RTI Act, Right to Information Act. This is one good actually policy intervention which is being done. Because of this, any of the person, he or she actually wants to get information about the department or the ministry, he can simply write it on the postcard that 45 paisa postcard or 50 paisa or 1 postcard can actually deliver that particular information to those people, those who are actually looking around for those information from those ministries or departments. Next comes Union States law for the False Claim Act. Yeah. There are certain in United States, if you are claiming something, there is an act. The act is called as Law False Claim Act. Suppose a ministry or the department is claiming that within 15 days of time period, you will getting the loan. I'm just putting an example here. And the person is not getting the loan, appropriate loan by that particular or for that particular scheme within 15 days. There is an act in the United States that those ministries, those officials, those who are actually claiming that okay, you will be getting within this time frame, they will be penalized or they will be set accountable, or even there are certain penalties for that. So such law is there in overseas. We do have a RTI Act. You might have seen in Andhra Pradesh municipal regulations, if public servant is not working, okay, and they are not displaying their duties, whatever is being set on. They need to pay rupees 50 per day on delay of public services. That is being set by law actually in our Andhra Pradesh Municipal Corporation. Suppose there is a sewer line which is to be cleaned within a week, and post week, post 7 days, no such action is being taken. So the official, the person who is heading that department, he will be penalized 50 rupees per day. This is one of the form actually where we are talking about how we can address on those impediments of the gray areas. Just giving you the example. In 2003, Election Commission of India came on with one of the innovation that okay, whatever the expenditure is being done by political parties, that needs to be actually reflected. And if you are not doing this, or if you are not able to actually do this, uh, there are the penalties and there are the occasions that candidature is also been cancelled. Of course, it's been cancelled. There are in this election also the instances were there, the occasions were there. Previous two elections also, either you take the by-election or you take the normal election, that is 5 years of Lok Sabha elections. There are the occasions, the people or the MPs, those who are actually filing up for the nominations, they were not able to give up the complete statement of the expenditure. And because of that particular act came in 2003, their candidature got cancelled. This is one good example where we are actually trying to address how the public policies can be set on the example. And 91th amendment is being done, restricting council members of union and state to 15% of the fund, regulating the public fund. If you take the case of this particular 91 amendment, we are actually trying, or by this law, we are restricting our council ministers not to spend over and above 15% of the public fund, okay, by themselves. And this is one good example that we are actually setting in the accountability of the chosen leaders actually. A 10th rule of anti-defection law is one good law actually, where we are asking that okay, by the time period of this much, if this thing election commission has given you the dates that okay, election is to be done on this from this date to this date, and if people are pushing away from here to there to those parties, anti-defection law will be there in place. I will take this anti-defection law more specifically, more precisely, in detail when we were there on offline mode, because there are certain good set examples in regard to this anti-defection law. Even in this particular election, the election of Uttar Pradesh, there are certain cases because of this anti-defection law. People didn't get their nomination, and those nomination get cancelled because of that. Domicile requirement was there before I must say 2003 the act came in. Prime Minister Modi ji declared that okay, for a domicile certificate, you need not to go to any of the gazetted officer. Your signature actually, the self attestation will do, and that is one good way where we are trying to curbing the monopoly or the power play or the corruption. And I must say this is one good public policy or the act which has been came in to support the people. If you go with the China decentralization strategy, the town village enterprises are there for becoming economic superpower. China has a different structure actually. Whenever we are talking about or whenever this particular discussion is there in around, China do usually believe in the structure of clusters. Whatever they are doing, either they are doing in if you take the case of innovation, if you take the case of construction, if you take the case of manufacturing, in each of the things, China is believing on cluster basis model actually. We are still behind to those particular model in some of the pockets, in some of the areas, in some of the states. We are doing this social development activities are actually there in form of clusters, but so many things still is to be done. And like of China, the strategy of town village enterprises. This is a one good policy which our DIC actually district information centers should think for or take on whenever we are talking about the startups or the innovations across the villages. That this particular policy we can actually adapt or we can replicate and form, prepare a localization of that, and then we can actually implement those things. Even some states are doing or trying for that. Some other new proposed public policy reforms are there. I'm trying just to give you the example. Funding by state 10% state government and union government 25% to municipal and panchayati raj system on project modes. Where we are trying, see, this particular initiative given by state government or the union government, we are trying actually to counter what can be the structure or what can be the funding model either by state level or by the central level or any of the project. Suppose union government is saying it is proposing some 25% to municipal and panchayati raj system, and by state they are saying that okay, you propose 10% of that, and we will pay 25% of that. So there is a collaboration working on for delivering those schemes and delivering those policies. Election reforms are very much in place, like proportional voting to curb vote buying or political corruption, political polarization. We are thinking for that. Okay, the you might be knowing about this proportional voters, how exactly it is working. If you see the election of our president, or if you see the election of Rajya Sabha members, the election of Rajya Sabha members or the election of president is totally based on the proportional voters. Of course, they are not the voters; they are elected members. But those we are taking the account of MPs and MLAs, MLAs of the states and the MPs for the president, and the proportional to those the population of those MPs and MLAs areas actually the accountability is being set, and that is what one good innovation is being curving in. Of course, we are trying in so that for our general elections also we can take on the proportional voters. We are thinking for, of course, it's not in place, but we are thinking for that. This is one such example or good example where we are trying to actually address on the that particular policy. Now we have discussed in our class also that how we can frame out any of the policy or the cycle of the public policy. Whenever we are talking about the public policy, how we can frame on what is the basic idea for framing a public policy. Usually, whenever see we are doing or we are creating or we are doing this particular exercise that is public policy construction for whom we are trying actually to support the people. So, firstly, please move on to the next one. Please move on to the next one. Yeah. So, firstly, we need to identify the problem area, problem of the people, problem of the area, problem of the town, problem of the city. If we are having a statement of the problem, or we are in the place to identify the problem, then only we can actually sit around, think for the solutions, think for narrow down those solutions, mm, try to find out the legitimate solution for that, which is really applicable as per the law, and then we can bring on the solutions on the implementation stage, and then at last we can evaluate. I will take on the next slide and discuss upon this. But this is a cycle actually to prepare a public policy. How we can do, I will come on in the very next slide. But whenever it's been done, a policy is there or scheme is there, the biggest actually struggle is on ground implementation. And why the biggest struggle is because we have a plan, we have a policy in our hand, but usually we don't have an action plan to implement it. And if we don't have an action plan to implement it, action plan in the sense there should be an implementation system or there should be a people around that these people are actually solely responsible for implementing this particular policy or the scheme. If we are not doing this, then we cannot say that, okay, this policy is going to be there with the people in good way. See, as a top down or the bottom up, we need to select the system, who, where, what, who will be doing this, where we will be doing this, what needs to be done. If this is not there, what is the action plan A, action plan B for that? If suppose something goes wrong, or suppose something is being coming up, that okay, we are actually, suppose if you take the case of COVID-19 itself, we were having an action plan. That action plan is being done on the war level, of course. Whatever we have learned because of the COVID-19, it's been done because on day basis we are getting certain problems coming in, and based on those solutions, based on those problems, we are coming up with the solutions. And we were preparing the action plans. We were preparing the vaccination plans. We were preparing how people can mobilize. We were preparing how food can be actually delivered. So likewise, we need to set on. If you see the COVID-19 situation itself, all the DMs, all the SDMs, uh, all the in and around all the bureaucracy, uh, so many people were working as a nodal officer for their districts and the blocks, and of course to the cities and the town areas. A designated official, government official, SDM, DM, were there actually those who were taking care of the transportation of the oxygen. A designated officers were working for the transportation of the vaccination. Likewise, there was a plan for that. If that particular plan is not there, if the implementation plan is not there, we can frame out the policy, any of the scheme or any of the policy. But if the concrete implementation plan is not there, the action plan is not there, that particular policy or that scheme is not going to work. So, and that is why I'm saying that okay, we have constructed a policy or we have constructed a scheme, but more and more we require people to work on the ground level, at the grassroots level to implement it. So whenever we are talking about any of the public policy, we need to think of who, where, how, what is to be implemented first. If we do that, then we can say, okay, this particular policy is going to work in, and this is having a good impact, or this will be having a good impact. At least then we can propose it that we can do it. So now I'm coming to just how we can make a public policy. And we will take a one example of this post this particular presentation. We will close this presentation here, and I will ask you guys, because you guys are good enough to actually construct any of the policy, if I say, because you know about what is the problem statement. I will give you the problem statement, and then we will construct the solutions, and then we can actually analyze. See, please move on to the next one. Whenever we are going to make a public policy, firstly we need to define the problem. Problem in case of suppose uh, very soon we are going to take up the case of or even scheme of the government of Delhi. So there we will define the problem statement which government of Delhi actually has proposed, that because of this problem we are going to implement this or even scheme. Okay. Then if we have an problem statement, we cannot propose that, okay, this is a problem. We need to define we need to assemble the evidence for that particular problem. That, okay, this problem is staying or it is there with us, and it is creating havoc situation, or it is creating problem for the people. And that is why we need to come out with a problem statement. We need to give an evidence to that particular problem that, okay, this is staying and this is lying, and we need to address this. Once we come on with the problem, once we know the problem, once we have an evidence in our hand, then we need to construct the alternatives for those things. We need to construct the alternatives for all those problems or that particular specific problem. What all the alternatives we have in our hand? Alternatives can be n number of alternatives in for each of the problem, but we need to first write it down, jot it down on our blackboard or on our paper, sit with the people, discuss like we were discussing in last 3 days. We were discussing about so many things. So why I was asking you guys and writing it on the board, because if we brainstorm, we can come upon with so many things on the place, and then we can think for each of the thing. Again, we need to uh, select the criteria for that, narrow down that particular criteria, alternatives for it, whether it's been legitimate or not, what is the law for this to do it, whether government of law or state law is union law is or state law is actually favoring this or not, whether we can go for it or not. We need to think for that. So construct an alternative, then move on to the selected criteria. We need to frame a criteria for that, how we will be actually moving ahead. Then propose the outcome of that, confront the trade-offs. Of course, it's not that whatever you are proposing, there will not be the trade-offs, there will not be the equipment, there will not be the threat for those things. Uh, so we need to think for what are those trade-offs, what are the high for those things, and what are the lows for those things. So we need to think for those. Then focus to narrow down the solutions, and then decide on the policy or decide on the scheme or decide on the solutions. And then you were actually able to come in and actually speak on or tell your story. So this is what actually as simple practice to actually whatever we are doing. See, in any of the format, whenever we are trying to frame out a policy, we are doing this, but it's not that it's a easy work. It's always we need to think for a legitimacy of those solutions or legitimacy of those alternatives, low highs of those things, whatever the criteria comes in second, whatever the alternatives are coming. There are certain cases we think for that, okay, this can be done. But once we view on and think for that, okay, how many people will be required for this? Or what all those infrastructure is required to do this? Or whatever the resources are required to do this, can we have it? Then we can actually come in, okay, we don't have the resources for that. Now again, we need to actually come up with a solution where we have a at least limited number of resources to push that particular scheme or push that particular policy to working. So it's a easy brainstorming process, but it's a tougher actually call to take on whenever we are talking about the public policy to be framed in. So you can actually end up our presentation here and just okay. What can be the advantages of good public policies? Last slide, please. See, if we are having a good public policy and if we are having a sensible implementation plan in hand, then we can say we can deliver it, or we can have a good governance plan or model in our hand, and this can be having with monetary or without monetary too, wherein education system is supporting for that. In the education system, if we see without monetary input, we can actually develop the communication skill of the students. Without any of the monetary support, we can actually develop the skill for functional literacy of the students. Without any financial input, we can actually develop the conceptual skill of the people. Without any monetary input, we can bring on the skill among the people to create or construct a meaningful and knowledge-based learnings actually. And we don't require, only thing we need to brainstorm. We need to actually train our people. We need to train our students for that. And a good, legitimate, functional, sensible approach policy will be there. Such policy interventions do address one uncertain, unnecessary loss for trade and business too. And this can actually help on whatever the delays are there in process. Whenever we are talking about the trade and businesses, this do help on for those things also, like attestation and permission challenges, monetary transfer, judicial reforms, speed and effective justice, crime monitoring, etc. These all are certain policy interventions which required a necessary interventions actually, because of which we need to think for how good our system is, how we can develop a plan where a judicial system becomes uh, comes up with a reform, with a policy, with a process, so that it becomes speedy, it becomes effective. A crime monitoring systems will be there, accident monitoring systems will be there, uh, road accident monitoring systems will be there. Whatever the monetary transfers are there among the departments, among the people, among the institutions, it should be transparent enough. Although we are in the place that uh, we already have uh, created the level where we have crossed China to, if we take the case of uh, monetary e-transactions, of course. So we still, there are certain impediments or there are certain challenges for attestation and permission for trade and business, but this can be actually addressed, or this can be tackled in a good way, with a good thought of good governance and good thought of public policy formations. Only thing we need to brainstorm our people, our students, our officials to work on for those things. I have given the non-monetary input wherein we can, wherein education can system can actually enhance these four meaningful things. That is functional literacy, communication skill, conceptual skill, and knowledgeable base skill for the students. And likewise, in each of the department and in each of the ministries, there are certain things which can be actually enhanced on without monetary benefit or without putting on any monetary, just by brainstorming these exercises, which we keep on doing whenever we are talking about public policy, or which we keep on doing during our internship for students. So thanks, Tingle. You can now actually switch off this presentation, and now we can discuss upon a problem statement, which is odd even scheme given by Government of Delhi. And I request all you guys actually to switch on your videos. I request team leader to close the presentation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, how many are there? 18 students are there. I request all of you to at least switch on your videos so that I can. Students, please switch on your videos. Okay, what we are going to do is, I'm giving you the problem statement that why we are going for, why Delhi government has given a notification to go for odd even scheme. So first of all, tell me the problem statement for that. What is the problem statement as per
So-
your opinion? Anyone can actually come in and say for that. What can be the problem statement given by government of Delhi to implement odd even scheme? Did anyone know about this odd even scheme of Delhi?
I don't know, sir.
Okay, all of you don't know.
Sir, no
Anyone
idea.
else? No idea. Anyone else? What was the odd even scheme given by government of Delhi?
Sir, it was about the number plates of cars that on one day odd number plates will only travel and the other day even.
Yes, it is. If today is first, so the odd number vehicle, the last two numbers of vehicle shall be the odd one. Those because those will be on the roads, and vice versa. On the second day, if the even number is there, the even number vehicle will be there on the road. So that is what the odd even scheme or odd even policy of Delhi government. But this is only the statement. This is only the actually requirement that okay, on the odd day, odd number vehicle will be there. On the even day, even number vehicle will be there. But to implement this particular policy, implement this particular theory on ground, a certain problem area they have actually proposed. What was that? Did you know what was that actually given by Delhi government? उन्होंने क्या कहा? What approach they have said to implement this odd even scheme?
Sir, I think sir they have implemented this sir because of the increase in the pollution in Delhi.
Okay. Anyone else would like to say on this?
Sir, I think it is also beneficial to reduce the traffic. So if the people are following this odd and even system, so apart from the pollution, it can also reduce traffic.
Okay. You know what you guys are doing. You are defining the problem. I have given you the topic actually. The topic is we are going to implement odd even scheme. This is what been done actually in the parliament, in the assembly of or the members in around in Delhi government. They did actually this exercise. Anything else? Anything else? If you are thinking for okay, we have come up for odd even scheme. One is the environment. The second one is the traffic. Any other problem which you actually think for? Anyone else can actually think for any of the other problem other than this?
Sir, maybe fuel consumption, petrol and
This
diesel.
company? Please come again.
Sir, if there are less vehicles that are working, then the fuel consumption will also be less.
Okay. Then any other thing which you would like to actually include in this? First one is environment. Second one is traffic. Third one is, of course, you are saying that fuel consumption will be there. Anything else?
And the pollution also, sir, I told.
Of course, pollution will be there.
So decrease in accident rate.
Accident rate. Okay, good. Anything else? Anyone have any other idea? Okay. Who is staying? Who is? Have you ever been to Bangalore or Delhi? Any one of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And you are staying in Lucknow also, and you are staying in Dehradun also. If I give you the idea, if you stay just on the heart of city, that is Hazratganj in Lucknow, what is the minimum time period uh, to cross 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers of road? What is the minimum time period you require?
Approx 3 to 4 minutes.
3 to 4 minutes. If you are in Delhi, how much?
Sir, I think 10 to 12 minutes.
If you are in Bangalore, how much?
But I think in Hazratganj, even if there is a lot of traffic, so it will take at least 15-20 minutes also.
So,
Yes, sir. Sometimes, sir, because of the sir traffic and sir the red light problem also, sir, because the red light stop for at least
90
180 seconds or 90 seconds, and sir, it only open for only 1 minute. That's it.
hardly 1 minute, not even 1 minute.
so okay.
That's not
Now
the second.
you got to know the 4 problem area or the 5 problem areas. That is, firstly is the environment. Secondly is more number of vehicles are there. Thirdly is fuel. Fifth is, of course, less pollution. Sixth, if I propose or if I say the commutation time period of the person or the people in cities like say, Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai is of course higher. Okay, the commutation time period as compared to Dehradun or as compared to Lucknow. And these all are the 5 to 6 problem statements which was proposed by Delhi government. These all are the problem statement because of which they came up with a plan that okay, we will go for odd even scheme. But very first problem statement which they have actually said that we are doing this just to address environment.
Sir, through this implementation, I think, sir, the people here and there, sir, will use more of public transport due to this.
Okay, this is a effect of this particular policy. Okay, this will be the effect of this. But while constructing a problem statement for that, they said that okay, the people in Delhi, there is so much pollution. In Delhi, the environment is not good. And just to upkeep the environment or just to upkeep the this ecology, we are going to go for a this thing or even scheme. So here you got the idea of the defining the problem statement. You got the idea? These were the 5 to 6 problem statement. Now assemble some evidence. How you will create a evidence for that? If I say that okay, this is the problem statement, what all those evidence you will propose for this?
So firstly, we will check. So we will basically, so we will do the analysis of the roads, so the traffic and the vehicle movement in particular areas like Hazratganj, Kursi Road, या Munshi Pulia, the most
Okay.
congested areas.
Yes.
Sir, if you talk about Delhi, sir, in order, if we proposing a problem statement, so we can also take the international ranks of India in terms of pollution and environment. So that can also be evidence.
Okay.
And sir, in order to address the road accidents, if you're talking about that problem, so we can, the state police is also having a lot of records regarding how much accident occurred in which area at which time. So that can also be evidence. While an RTI, so we will get to know about those things.
So you mean to say you guys require data? You guys require data. Data of what? Number of vehicles on the road, number of road accidents. You require data for attribution to death or attribution to death because of the environment, attribution of environment hazards, which actually fuel burning is coming in or because of the fuel burning it is there. So this set of data you require as an advance or evidence to that. It's not only that you are actually proposing a problem, you require evidence for that also. If you don't have an evidence for it, you cannot say that, okay, I am only thing proposing a problem will do. You require evidence for that. Got it? Now comes to what can be the alternatives for it. What can be the alternatives for the problem statement? Is I audible to you all? Hello? Is
Yes,
I
sir.
audible to you all?
You're audible.
Yes, I'm asking what can be the alternatives for this? Isika, what can be the alternative for this? For the problem statement? Can someone define me the alternatives for this? How you can actually go for an alternative? How you can frame the alternatives for this problem? Is saying that, okay, go for an odd and even will do? Or you need to construct some alternatives for this? What are those alternatives?
Sir, moving on to the electrical vehicles.
Okay, one good idea. Second,
So more use of public transport.
good. Third,
Carpooling.
And some making strict regulations regarding the industrial waste and all that thing.
which
So we can
regulation? Which regulation?
strict strict strict.
Okay. Then fourth,
So we can basically address the industrial waste problem, and if the people are not following the guidelines, they will be penalized or they will be liable to pay the fine. These kind of regulation can also help.
okay. Then fourth, any other, of course, alternative for this? Let me give you the idea what can be the alternatives for this. See, very first thing is we can see corporates, people are going by car only. Okay, they are very much habitual about the car and their own four-wheelers. One best idea for doing this or for getting the answer of this or solution for this is asking more and more people, officials, to go for carpooling because they are habitual for those four-wheelers. Let them go, but ask them to go for a carpooling. Secondly, encourage corporate or carpooling companies. There are certain companies, those who are coming up with so much good ideas and incentives for this carpooling. Encourage those things. At least by that, we will be having a less number of vehicle on road. Then, n number of places and number of cities can have, even especially for the metro cities, we require a metro trains to actually be there in place. Like Lucknow is having, Jaipur is having, Delhi is having, Mumbai is having, Madras, Bangalore, Calcutta, all are having. But more number of metro shall be there. End-to-end connectivity of these metros will be there. Accessibility of metros to all the corners or all the pockets of cities shall be there. And the price reduction of these metros. This can be one good alternative. Why I'm talking about accessibility of metro? You might be knowing if you are in Delhi or if you are in still been in Lucknow, a very limited route is there for metros, and we cannot actually. This metro is not accessible to all of the places. Like as in other cities also, this metro is not accessible to all places. So again, suppose someone is reaching to some point of time where metro station is there, and after that, again, we have to go for booking of the vehicle, or we have to take on either the two-wheeler or the four-wheeler from there. So what I'm saying is we require more number of pockets to actually be connected with these metros, so that this public transport is more good for the people and for the environment.
Sir,
More
sir.
corridor should be there. Yeah, please.
Sir, maybe this is the only reason why Lucknow Metro is in loss right now.
Yeah, that's why. That's why. See, we need whenever as per the population of our city, as per the population of our town, we need to frame that did we really require more number of metro stations and more number of metro network for our particular town. We need to think for whenever we are a suitable city municipal corporation is sitting whenever it's not that only metro people are actually finalizing the DPR. Okay. Whenever the finalization of DPR is there, that project report is there for any of the public transport or any of the activity, we need to think for the population. If population is not taken into account, then we are not addressing the solution precisely for the people there. Then comes e-car. It's very new trend that e-cars are there in place. When this thing happens, actually, what you call odd and even, there was very few companies or very few options were there in Delhi itself. Now, so many companies are there in place that they are proposing for e-cars. Even government of India is also thinking for sky cabs or cable cars in some of the cities. They are proposing or they are thinking for that. It's in the idea, but this is the one good alternative actually. And that is why it's been proposed or it's been in thought by the governments. Then comes, see, if we are saying that we are looking forward for public transport means we require more budget actually. It's not only that saying to the people that you don't use a car will be the solutions, but then you require more eco-friendly, people-friendly the vehicles, transports, public transport, and for that you require a budget. Again, you require a separate budget for that. So you need to think for regularize the car buying system, regularize the vehicle loan system. That even like we are saying that okay, if you are taking the bike, if you are purchasing bike, you need to purchase helmet. Likewise, you need to incentivize that if you are going for e-vehicles, you will be getting more benefit in terms of money. There shall be some incentives given for purchasing e-vehicles. There shall be more incentives for doing carpooling or using public transport to the people, the officials, government officials. Incentives will be given to the public transport and carpooling. These can be some alternatives. Now, reaching to, if you got the alternatives, can you frame the criteria for that? Problem statement is being done. Okay. You got to know the problem statement. You got to know you have evidence in your hand. Now you have a alternatives with you. Then what you need to do is you need to frame a criteria. Criteria in the sense, will that particular, whatever the solutions you are saying, will it really do or is it really legitimate to work on it? Can you really work for those alternatives? Can you have those budget in your hand to actually make people to work for or go for it or the governments to work in for those things? You need to set in the criteria. How you will set in the criteria for that? Can anyone say? How you will actually prepare a criteria for that? Okay, I will give you the criteria for this, but you can frame out the criteria whether how you can actually answer that odd even was good or not. That means please give me your suggestions for this particular problem statement. और इवन अच्छा हुआ कि नहीं हुआ उसका क्राइटेरिया कैसे बनाएंगे आप लोग?
So evaluation से analysis उसका impact क्या था बाद में?
What evaluation and what questions you will be there in your mind to evaluate it? Tell me that.
That how much percentage of pollution has reduced? So there's any decrease in the number of pollution? So is there any decrease in the number of fuel consumption? So is there any decrease in the accident rate? So that is how we are going to analyze. So if it is below than a required level, then we can say that we have then we didn't made a particular good policy.
What you need to do? Good. See, whenever we are saying that we are going to frame a criteria, what we need to do is, firstly, we need to take the responses from the people. Okay, what was their perception into this? What is their overview for that particular scheme? One good certain criteria will be there by that. Okay, that they are actually, it was comfortable for them, it is good for the people, it is good for the environment. They will give you the replies, and there will be certain stories behind that. Okay, then you can actually take in the overview by the organizations also, because see, setting or saying that odd even will be there, it means odd number vehicles will not be there on the road, and the people or the children, those who are coming in this odd number of vehicles. Okay, अच्छा एक चीज बताओ, ऑड नंबर ऑड इवन कर दिया, ठीक है, आपको एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल बताता हूँ, हमने ऑड इवन कर दिया, ऑड इवन इज देयर इन प्लेस, and now children needs to come in for the school or officials needs to come in. एक ही गाड़ी को 2 बार भेजा तो मतलब तो वही रह गया ना. We are saying that we are doing this for environment, but the same number vehicle, that odd number vehicle on the odd day is traveling twice. Is this a good option for that? Are you getting my point?
Sir, but we can't prevent that also, na? So how can we say that the odd number will be traveling once a time a day? Is it not possible?
So that is why I am saying, that is why I actually quote this, that you need to go and ask to the organization to set in the criteria or to make the criteria for that whether it's been good or not. Go and ask to those people, the end users first. That is the people. Second, end users are the organizations, because their work is being hampered because of this, or they need to create a other system or other options for this.
I have a doubt also. Sir,
Those-
as we are saying, sir, that it should be odd even, right? So, sir, if an individual having an only even number car and sir, there's an emergency, then what they will do?
There are certain options are being given by during this odd even scheme, that government vehicles, defense vehicles, ambulance, children, ladies, single driven women vehicles, ladies driving with with children. These are actually not coming under this odd even scheme.
So that means, sir, these all parameters are also being considered while making these policies.
So they have set down, they have think for those things, that okay, there will be circumstances that ambulance will be only in the odd numbers, defense vehicles can be in only the odd numbers. Then on even day, how they can actually run on. So once sitting for this particular policy, they set down this criteria, they think for this criteria, that okay, we need to frame on this criteria too, that defense vehicle will go on, ambulance will go on, police will go on, ladies who are driving, because there can be the instances that only the female member is there in home. So she is only going out for all the things. Children with the movement, if they are there in the car or they are in the vehicle. So that's been, this particular liberty has been given. They were not coming under odd even scheme. So that is why I am saying you need to go and ask the end user first. that how was this particular scheme? Is it really applicable? Is it really useful for you all? Is it really useful for your organization? Then, because their story will actually help you to frame out really is it to analyze that particular scheme. Then comes the analysis of the environment because of this, analysis of number of vehicle because of this, analysis of commutation time because of this, and other analysis which were there during the problem statement. So once you get on the criteria of these things, then you can think for whether outcome was good or not. After setting the criteria, you can get on the outcome. Yes, please come in. Who was
सर व्हाट इफ लाइक अगर एक ही घर में ऑड नंबर की भी कार है इवन नंबर की भी कार है तो सर वो ऑल्टरनेटिव्स में यूज कर सकता है उसके लिए कुछ क्राइटेरिया है या नहीं
कोई क्राइटेरिया नहीं था उसके लिए. देयर इज नो सच क्राइटेरिया कि आप देखिए दिस इज बीन एक्चुअली थिंक फॉर इसको बनाया गया इसको सोचा इस तरीके से गया कि इससे नंबर ऑफ व्हीकल कम हो जाएंगे. लेकिन इसमें ये पैरामीटर नहीं सोचा गया या ये पैरामीटर देखो इसके लिए आपको क्या चाहिए होगा इसके लिए एक डेटाबेस चाहिए रहता कि ऐसे कितने लोग हैं उसके ऊपर भी वर्क ऑन करना पड़ेगा आपको. यू नीड टू थिंक फॉर कि ऐसे कितने लोग हैं जिनके पास डबल देयर आर एन नंबर ऑफ पीपल्स. बहुत सारे लोग ऐसे हैं जिनके पास घर में 4-4 कार है. ठीक है. अब उनके पास ऑड इवन सब कुछ है. उनके पास छोटी गाड़ी भी है बड़ी गाड़ी भी है ऑड भी है इवन भी है. तो वहां पे तो उनके लिए कुछ एप्लीकेबल हुआ ही नहीं. उनके ऊपर इफेक्ट नहीं पड़ा. ठीक है. लेकिन गवर्नमेंट को काउंट करना पड़ेगा ऑन रोड क्योंकि उससे आप उसको आप काउंट भी करेंगे तो मतलब नहीं है ना उसका. आपको काउंट करना है ऑन डे ऑड इवन डे के दिन पे इन्वायरमेंट का सेंसस क्या था. आपको काउंट करना है ऑड इवन के डे पे नंबर ऑफ व्हीकल्स का सेंसस ऑन रोड क्या था. नंबर ऑफ एक्सीडेंट्स का रेट क्या था. दिस यू नीड टू एनालाइज if you are really analyzing an odd even scheme of Delhi government. The outcome will also be analyzed because of this. तभी आप निकाल पाएंगे. You
सर
got
आउटकम
that?
तो शायद पॉजिटिव ही आया था इसका मतलब पॉजिटिव ही है सर.
Please go through it. Why? Because the problem statement was of environment. Okay. प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट जो ऑड इवन की थी वो इन्वायरमेंट के लिए थी. और जो क्या बोलते हैं आउटकम आया है और आउटकम की जो रिपोर्ट की एनालिसिस आई है ठीक है उसमें इन्वायरमेंट पे इफेक्ट ज्यादा नहीं आया है ऑड इवन स्कीम को इंप्लीमेंट करने से. देयर इज वेरी मिनिमल चेंजेस इन द डेटा ऑफ इन्वायरमेंट. ओके. द इफेक्ट ऑफ ऑड इवन टुवर्ड्स द इन्वायरमेंट. एंड उसमें एक डेटा और सामने आया है. इफ यू गो विद द डेटा the environment which is bad or the bad environment in Delhi is not because of number of vehicles on the road. It is highly because of the construction work going in and around Delhi NCR. First thing. Second thing, the number of the pollution which is being done by four-wheelers was the same. If you compare the pollution done by two-wheelers, it was higher before the odd even scheme. So they didn't actually consider two-wheelers into this. Rather than thinking for only the four-wheelers, they need to think for two-wheelers too. But उनको तो उनके दिमाग में two-wheelers आए ही नहीं. And the data is saying that number of pollution, that the presentation of pollution in percentile or in percentage is higher by two-wheelers as compared to the four-wheelers. Got it? But during the odd even scheme, two-wheelers were spared. It was not there actually in the scheme. So setting and thinking a policy, you need to think for so many things. You got the idea? कि क्या क्या सोचना पड़ता है. We need to think for and how to analyze it. It's not that if you are saying that okay, because of this environment is bad, then prove it because of this environment becomes good by the data. But it is not the case. So you need to analyze it. You yourself need to analyze it, and then again you need to implement it or not. It's not that they did anything wrong in this. This is one good practice that we need to think for the solutions, and they did a good thing on that. And even the other countries, other states, they too are doing this thing. It's not that this is the very first time we are doing, or India is doing. India, of course, is doing very first time. That is not even case of the vehicles. But this particular initiative is being taken in other places across the globe. And from there only, government of Delhi actually think for, let us try for odd even scheme. Good or bad, of course, this can be taken consideration after doing it. But you need to plan it beforehand. Key, what is the problem statement and how to analyze it? What can be the criteria to analyze it? I have given you just this as a case study. Why? Because this case study will tell you how to frame a policy and how to actually analyze the policy. Got it? Any other questions?
No, sir.
Any other suggestions? Alok, you have written it is preventing over centralization. For
Sir, when you were talking about that after 91st Amendment, only 15% of members were allowed to become the ministers. So it is preventing centralization also.
That's what. See, if you take the case of Uttar Pradesh ministers, number of ministers, okay, in one point of time, more than 2/3 of the people, those who were there, they were the ministers actually. And just post this particular event, they took on this action that agar isko, see, if we have more number of ministers, it means we have more number of fund allocation to those things. Just to curb this over centralization, they took this action, and they took this action just post that particular incident or post that event, that more than 2/3 became a minister in that particular state. Then government comes in action. No, ऐसा नहीं होगा कि आप कितने भी minister बना दो, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता ना. There is a budget for that, so you need to think for it. This much budget is given. This much ministries can be actually, our ministers can be there.
And sir, apart from over centralization, it is also causing unnecessary expenditure. So because
See, more number of ministers means more number of payment is to be done. Payment is going from the pocket of the state or the union. Okay,
yes.
and then if the payment is going from the pockets of the union and states, it means somewhere down the line, this particular money is not utilized for any of the other scheme or any of the other thing which can be given for the people. And just to curb it, not only the over centralization, just to curb the money, users of the utility of the money, they did this actually.
Okay, sir, I got it.
Anything else? Okay, thanks, students. This was good to actually see you all coming in, joining in for today's action. Tomorrow will be holidays. Do prepare. There are certain students still left out to actually give that introduction. Fill up the Google form. Team leaders, please ask all the students to fill up the Google form for introduction of interns so that we can have an e-book.
Yes, sir.
And secondly, start working on what you call your assignment 1. Any query from your end, please do post in either on WhatsApp or you can say, ask me by DM to me. I can respond on those things. No worries.
No,
Rest,
sir.
take care.
Thank you,
Rest,
sir.
take care. See you on Monday. Tuesday we will be visiting NHM ISC also. Mondays, I think we will be meeting here in Microlight. Very
Sir,
much near.
Monday will be the center.
Monday will be in the center. And do let me know if someone is doing research work today or has done. Do let me know. Okay. Thanks, students. Take care. Rest.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye bye. Take care.